Deep dropper rigs run 24 to 48 inches. This does teeter on classic indicator nymphing. It's likely best if you stick with nymphing setups if you aren't accustomed to using 4-foot droppers. To transition from nymphing to deep droppers, consider using a poly-based indicator such as the New Zealand strike indicator system. This will help you get used to casting deep droppers, as the poly is very similar to casting a bulky dry fly. Choosing to fish deep droppers comes when it's obvious that the fish just aren't coming up, they're staying at depth, or you can see them holding deep. You can work a deep running nymph below stoneflies, hoppers, hexagenia and brown drake mayflies, or other large insects. Using these large buoyant dries, it's easier and faster to tie a 4-foot section of tippet below the dry fly than to convert to a pure nymphing setup. It's an exciting time because while you fish a deep dropper nymph, you're drifting a large insect to entice a big surface eat. Specific to hatches of large stoneflies such as squallows, goldens, or salmon flies, trout often key on the early nymphal movement from deep rocky runs to the shallows. It's best to focus on drifting the dry dropper along the tee to green depth transition. The large buoyant dry is always going to entice a take or two in fast choppy water, and its buoyancy can support a moderately heavy stonefly nymph at depth. Do note that because the dry fly is so large, even if the heavy nymph pulls it under, you should still be able to see it drift. On a 20-foot drift through likely water, the dry may only float for 12 before it sinks. But don't give up on the drift, just keep an extremely keen eye on it as it completes the drift slightly sunk. During the early stages of mayfly emergences, you may notice trout swinging in deeper runs. The fish haven't moved up laterally to feed on duns, but are certainly keyed on nymphs and earlier emergers. In faster thigh-deep water, a 3 or 4 foot dropper to an oversized tungsten beadhead nymph is effective under a small, high-riding dry fly. One of the more difficult scenarios in fly fishing is spotting trout feeding on tiny mayfly nymphs or midge pupa on the bottom of a short, fast thigh-deep run. A deep, sparsely tied dropper nymph with an oversized tungsten bead will allow it to get deep quickly while drifting naturally. A small polywing caddis or polypost mayfly as the dry will support the nymph and possibly get the take. It's also a perfect scenario to use the alternative dropper setup with no fixed knot to the dry fly. This allows the nymph to slowly get deeper without sinking the dry. It's these small adjustments that can make the world a difference.
He'll come to that. He's coming. You got him!